Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello, welcome back to the Daily Palace podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. I'm Joe Lodge. I have chain-eaten half a pack of sausages rapidly before coming on here. So rest assured that if you hear something that sounds like projectile vomiting, it is exactly that. With me today are Finn and Dan. How are you doing, Finn?
I'm good. Yeah, I've just traversed the rainy London weather to make it just in time for the pod. Joe, are you recording from the bathroom again? Is this your new vocal booth that I've spot for listeners that can't see?
It's all for the acoustics. That's why he's doing it.
Yeah, it's actually the living room. This, which has been styled like a bathroom by the architects who came up with the flat. I'm usually in the bedroom, but Anna, my partner's not here right now, so I've taken the big room.
You've been upgraded. You mean you've been upgraded to the king suite?
Temporarily, very Lee Castley level upgrade. But I'll enjoy it while I can. But I'll be back in the bedroom for the rest of the week. Dan, how are you doing as well?
I'm doing all right. It's still early in the week, so come back to me like Wednesday and we'll see what the halftime score is there. So far, so good. So we're all cool.
So plenty of time for things to go south, but I'm pleased the week started well. So today we'll be talking a bit about what's been going on with Palace's boys in the internationals, and interesting links for Ruud van Nistelrooy as a potential Glasner replacement should he get the sack if results still continue to falter. And then we will finish with one of the silly little novelty segments that I will withhold the subject of until we get to the end. So, since we last broadcast, England have beaten Ireland 5-0 to secure promotion back to Nations League Group A. Palace were represented in the game by Mark Guehi. Finn, as the podcast Irishman, do you think he played well? And if so, is he dead to you?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Ireland didn't even lay a glove really on England. I think there was a really good first half in terms of defensively, but then England have just got so many creative players that eventually all it took was, in fact, it was kind of weird. It was a really great Harry Kane pass, which sort of just cut the Ireland defence in half, and then Liam Scales got a second yellow, fouled in the box, and just that was that. The game was pretty much over from there on in. Kind of annoying as well. I mean, I always say this, I sound like a broken record. It's always frustrating to see English players with Irish origins and also who are using Irish passports currently to play abroad, scoring against us. But that's just the nature of it, I suppose. You use what you can when you have it. But no, England. It was a well deserved victory for England, and Mark did really well to sort of snub out the few opportunities Ireland had. Although I might have been potential penalty shout, I think. I mean, there was a lot of shirt tugging and stuff like that, but I don't know. I feel like it was going to be very hard push for Ireland to get those decisions. So, but yeah, no, not.
I think that was a very legitimate penalty shout for Ireland in the first half against old Uncle Mark there. While he did play, he does appear to have his hands all over the man's shirt. Evan Ferguson, wasn't it? And he does seem to haul him over. So I don't know why that's not a penalty, perhaps.
Yeah,
but...
and then I think Kyle Walker as well sort of tripped over, but by tripping over, took out. Can't remember who it was. It might have been, I think it was Malumbi or someone. Yeah, and So, but it's just one of those nights where I could see what our Icelandic manager was trying to do, but I think just England were too good and they've stolen all our youth. So what can I say? I'm checking. No, but But yeah, no, it's good news for Palace in the sense that whenever Mark has a good performance, it's sort of, you hope that will translate into performances for us. And yeah, as someone who was at our last home game, we definitely need all of our players in top form coming into these fixtures now for the last bits of 2024.
Nice, yeah. Well, following the match, departing interim boss Lee Carsley used his, I guess, final kind of press conference interviews partly to praise Mark Guehi, stated that he'd earned his place as a regular star for England, and praised him for his leadership qualities that had seen Carsley also name him captain of the under-21s, drew attention to the way Mark helped the likes of Harwood Bellis and Livramento as debutants in the back line. Is it mad to suggest that, having been on the periphery of the England setup, Guehi is now looking like a future England captain, Dan?
I can totally see him being the England captain. I think he got the Palace armband, I think, within a couple of months of actually arriving. Like, he was a virtually unheard of centre-back. And he got the armband. It's like, I think he was like, 20, probably something like that. So probably one of the younger members of the team at the time. And he got the armband then. And I don't see why not now. If he's being praised by the outgoing England manager, and it got the armband at the under-21, I don't see why not. He's definitely got the presence in the back line. He's given enough leadership to the new incumbents, the new debutants, who are probably only about a year or so younger than him, if that. So, and then just hopefully can kind of translate that leadership a bit more into the Selhurst dressing room, because that seems to go up and down depending on the hour of the day. So I think he could definitely be the next England captain. He's got the right mannerisms and everything like that. We've had some interesting ones over the years. We've had Bex over the years, who was a good ambassador for England. We had John Terry, who sort of embodied that grit, that absolute determination. We don't really talk about the bit off the pitch, but on the pitch, he was probably one of the better defenders in the world. But so he can definitely continue on the way he's going, and I don't see why not, really. I don't see really anybody else in the squad that can really do it. A lot of them do have this kind of presence of the me, myself, and I attitude. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's definitely feels like one of the obvious candidates of the kind of younger crop of England players establishing themselves. They're not all natural kind of communicators, naming no names, Cole Palmer. I suppose Bellingham's the other one that you think could be a captain material in the future, and it'll just be a shoo-in. He'll start every game until he's 33 probably, and clearly had good communication skills and leadership skills, but whether he's as sort of universally loved as Mark Guehi seems to be by teammates and certainly ever, I don't know. So perhaps he is the man to take the armband. Elsewhere in South America, where meaningful and interesting international football is still taking place, old Mooney D was in action in a Dindan, Spanish for ding dong, 3-2 away defeat at the hands of Uruguay. ¿Qué piensas sobre that, Finn?
¿Qué pasa? ¿Otra vez? No entiendo.
What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, no, like, again, Danny Muñoz, I feel like when he play, it'd be great to see. He seems to have always played pretty well for the Colombian team, and also seems to be pretty prolific. And I think one of the things I heard actually on the terraces at Selhurst and up in the Homesdale was a lot of people saying it'd be great if he could translate that goal scoring for the Colombia team into some stuff for Palace, because I think one of the main criticisms I think of Palace this year is we've been quite low scoring and we haven't had many. We haven't scored many goals. Yeah, so it'd be great if he could add that to his game. And then obviously Jefferson Lerm is still out injured. So, yeah, I've just seen as well. I was just on the way back from work. I saw that Matt Turner saved a penalty against Jamaica, and then it cut to Steve McLaren with his head in his hands on the Jamaica bench. So that gave me a little bit of a lift. Yeah, no. Also, I believe Justin Devaney had his. I don't think he played, but he had his first call up for the Northern Ireland squad, which is good news. And even though he's not currently with the Palace squad, Jason Raksaki also received a call up for the England under-21s. So that's good news. And Ismaila Sarr played for Senegal in, I think they beat Burkina Faso the other night.
That's correct.
And
1-0.
Daichi Kamada also got an assist in the 4-0 win over Indonesia for Japan. So, yeah, lots of Palace players doing international bits at the moment.
Lots of fun. Yeah, certainly are. Matt Turner, we were talking about that the other day. It was like he's given me a lot more confidence than at first I thought. He's not a super inspiring backup, but actually good performances for the US, good performances in the Cup. He's starting to look all right, if not challenging Henderson. And then, Colombia, always a lot of fun. Didn't quite get the win in this one, but you kind of worry they may be showing some signs of slowing down after the disappointment of that Copa America final. But equally, I think they gave a good account of themselves against a talented and well-coached Uruguay side, and ultimately, lost 3-2 in a game that was 2-1 in the 95th minute, with Colombia equalising and then Uruguay turning the score again. So, it was a great match. Do you catch any of that, Dan? Do you have any thoughts on Daniel Muñoz's performance?
Yeah, I actually you brought it up on the plan earlier. I actually went to go and watch the highlights, and that last few minutes was just insane. It goes in one end, and then the last goal is almost from the kickoff. Like Uruguay just sort of pass it around, and it's just an absolute sort of floater into the box and a couple of little ricochets, and it goes into the back of the net. But I was kind of paying attention to Muñoz, and he didn't exactly have the greatest game. The first goal, he was defending the wing, and I think it's probably the fullback crosses the ball in, and he's got his arms down by his bound by his side, like you're trained to do now, and the ball kind of ricochets off his arm and kind of back spins, and then Sanchez, one of the defensive guys, kind of toe pokes it into the back of the net for an own goal. So it wasn't the greatest performance when it came to that, and I think he's not exactly would say at fault for the next one, but he kind of trips over while getting into position, and it leaves one of the Uruguay players sort of free couple of bit of free space to move and pass the ball off to the eventual goal scorer. So he didn't exactly have the greatest time there, but
yeah, I agree. I think you should stop the cross for that first year.
Yeah, if you get a minute, Finn, just have a quick. There's 5-6 minutes of the highlights, and just sort of that last few minutes of it is insane.
He missed a chance that he really should have scored, which is like criticism, but actually speaks to that point that Finn made earlier, though, of he's got this knack for getting into goal scoring positions that you see all the time for Colombia, and would like to see kind of again for Palace. I think you did see it at the back end of last season, and I think there's still, it's not entirely unencouraging performance from him. It's just a bit slow to get out to the first cross, and
maybe that's the problem. So I mean, I found this out today. Apparently, the Colombian team's nickname is Los Cafeteros, which is the coffee growers. So maybe the key is Daniel needs to drink a little bit more coffee. Maybe he's not. Maybe he just needs one more shot of espresso in his
drinking it constantly before he goes out onto the pitch. Come on, Daniel, drink up. Come on.
As captain, Margay should be force feeding him macchiatos now. And then we'll recapture his best form. I think on that, good time to wrap up the international discussion and have a word from our sponsor.
Here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
So now time for a segment I'm calling Ruud van Nistelrooy. Ruud van Nistelrooy has politely stepped aside from his coaching role at Manchester United following the appointment of Ruben Amorim. Van Nistelrooy had been caretaker manager of the Red Devils following the sacking of Erik ten Hag, and he drew once and won 3 in his 4 games in charge. Since that, he's been linked with the dugout at Palace. Would this be an entirely stupid move for the Eagles, Finn?
I still think it's too early. Personally, I think it's too early to think about realistically getting rid of Glasner. I think I was even talking about this at the weekend, funnily enough, with my best friend who is a Fulham fan, and we were talking about the game, and we were sort of saying that Palace, and I think this is the idea that I get from other fans who follow Palace, who've watched Palace and seen us over the years, is that we seem to gravitate between either trying to play expansive, more expressive football with a European manager, and we're like, yeah, we're going to try and break out of this mold. It starts to go wrong slightly, and then Palace revert to, let's stick to what we know, let's do attritional football, let's stay in the league, that's all that matters. And then we do that for a while, and then it's like, okay, let's try again. And yeah, it means we've retained our Premier League status now for well over a decade, but it is frustrating for fans, and I still think Palace fans need they need to remember that we're doing very well to still be in this league, and we are a pretty well run club, and whilst we might not have the transfer nuance of teams like, annoyingly, Brighton and other clubs, we are doing pretty well, and I think it's always easy to see the negatives when things are going badly. But if we actually take a look at the grand picture, Palace are in an optimum position really to kick on. And I feel like all it needs is just a few decent results going into the new year, which may not happen potentially. But also if it did, suddenly you're looking at a very different picture. You're seeing a real opportunity for Glasner to kick on, and we've got a lot of injuries at the moment. There's a lot of players missing, and I feel like even with that Tottenham game, that's what Palace have shown is what they can potentially do when things are going well. I think Ruud van Nistelrooy is a really good manager. I think he's done a good job in his interim position at Man United, and I think he was also a really good manager at PSV before. If they did get rid of Glasner, yeah, sure, why not? I believe, though, he's being linked with the Coventry City job, which, if I'm be honest with you, if I was Ruud van Nistelrooy and had a choice between Coventry City and Crystal Palace, I would actually probably go for Coventry City. I think that's going to be a bit more of that's a better stepping stone for him, I think, in his career than coming straight to South London.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's slightly depressing thought from a Palace perspective at the moment, but to think that, Coventry City, that's a team that he can probably only improve because they've got a really good squad, really good blueprint under Mark Robbins there that just wasn't quite working out this year. And I don't know, having watched them in my recreational life as an Oxford United fan a couple of times, they're a good side. Coventry City should not be languishing where they are in the table. Really talented players, and that would probably be a job that would make a lot of sense for your Ruud van Nistelrooy. And I agree. I don't think it makes sense for Palace to go there either. He did do well in his time at United there, but that involved the 3 wins were against like the 3rd or 4th biggest team in Greece, and then Leicester twice, and they drew Chelsea at home. It's a good result, but it's not anything that special. he did do okay, did well as PSV manager, but not better than Glasner did as Frankfurt manager and manager of other teams. And I think, as United learned last time round with Solskjaer, just like this is a team made up of entirely of people who are probably jubilant that their stubborn, overbearing boss who's ostracized lots of their teammates has been sacked, and they're having a big bounce out of that, and it doesn't necessarily last. I don't think it really particularly makes sense. Do you have a counter view, Dan? Are you could you see Van Nistelrooy working out?
We're going on the hypothetical that Glasner is leaving, so I think he probably could work, because you can get these managers with the limited, we're going to call it like limited experience, actually working, because Palace have done it at least once or twice. We did it with Vieira, who prior to being at Palace spent, I think, 3 or 4 years working through the Man City youth system and had about 18 months or so in the French league. I can't remember which club. It's either Nice or Metz. I can't remember which one it was. So, and he only had limited experience, well, relatively limited experience. And he managed to get, I think, Palace the highest we'd been in the Premiership almost ever, or at least for a very, very long time. But you can also take into this same bracket as Arteta is another one of these guys that has literally no other experience of managerial career whatsoever. He was the assistant at City for 6 or 7 years under Pep. So these guys can work, but it's still a bit of a gamble as well. But Ruud does have the experience. He has sort of had 2 spells with PSV, which I know it's kind of the Dutch league and there is only like really 2 teams in it, but you can't knock. PSV is a good side. They have churned out some really good players over many, many years of world-class players that have probably more often than not have played for the Dutch league. It's the Dutch team for at least once or twice. He's also been the assistant for the Dutch side on a couple of occasions too. So he does have plenty of experience in managerial spaces, etc. But it's very much a gamble still. So I'm kind of would be optimistic if he did theoretically show up. But still, Glasner's doing fine for the minute. I would probably, if it gets any worse over the Christmas period and into January, like almost like the next international break would probably be the next time, if I was sort of Paris or any of those, actually thinking about it. Because other than that, there isn't that many options available.
Yeah, I think you raise a good point. I also wouldn't replace Glasner with him, certainly not at this point, but he makes more sense. There's more promise there than some of the other Moyes, Southgate kind of names being bandied about. If there wouldn't be such a sort of step backwards, less negative appointment, it could be a really good manager. The signs are basically positive so far, so I don't think it'd be the worst one. But my main reason for not appointing Van Nistelrooy is, like, why would you have him in a role where he's not on the pitch, so you can't go Ruud every time it would feel like a real waste of the man's talents that you'd have to do it every time he stepped out of the technical area or bullet to 4th official or something. I don't know, but it doesn't feels like a bit of a waste.
We used to scream Vieira, so and when you do it did the Emirates, I was there at the Emirates, and you got the whole crowd doing it. It was really.
I still think the best one, even though he was never really a great player for us, but was Steve Mandanda, and we used to just go Steve.
Yeah. All right, nice. Well, let's have another pause there and have a word from the network.
This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network, every club, every day.
So, 58-year-old boxing legend Mike Tyson laced his gloves back up last Friday to fight professional moron Jake Paul. The event triggered most viewers to ask questions like, what is sport? Has Mike Tyson made some bad investments? And what is it about Jake Paul's ears that look less tasty than Evander Holyfield's? But what made me question was, which ex-Eagle would we most like to see return to Selhurst? Starting with you, Finn. Who would you like to see come back out of retirement?
Damien Delaney. I would love to see Damo just like as he is now, just like, and I'm sure he's in relatively good shape, but still, I just love to see him come back, and like, I just love him. He was such a character, and I think he was also really underrated and integral part of that Palace team that he was playing in. And I think even now, that sort of team that we have could really do with his leadership and his sense of humor, and just just a kick up the arse, really. I think he'd be very good at that. And I still think one of my favorite moments of all time is during the When Eagles Dare documentary, is the cameraman going over to him and he's like, "What are you filming?" And they're like, "You, for the documentary." And he's like, "Oh." Dave in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think we could use some of that energy back in the Palace side. He's also, if there's a lack of fight in the team, he's the player in world football most likely to have read The Art of War, I would say, based on his dinner parties, his fascination.
Lots of former generals and dictators and stuff like that.
That'd be a nice foil to Mark Guehi's kind of quiet, compassionate leadership. It's the man who admires Genghis Khan. What about you, Dan? Who would you like to see come out?
Mine's kind of basic and very obvious. Andy Johnson, mainly because we have a massive problem scoring at the moment. I don't know, he's not exactly the greatest personality in the world. He always comes across as slightly boring and everything like that, but he can score goals. At the moment, just we struggle so much, and since he's gone, we've gone through so many centre forwards that we somehow ruined, or got them at the tail end of their career, or in the case of Benteke, Liverpool selling us a lemon. Just somebody that could. He was just a natural poacher.
He was phenomenal.
As we were talking about earlier, Van Nistelrooy, he did exactly the same thing for Palace, just put them in the back of the net. They don't have to be pretty, they just have to go in. So, and you could probably also kind of put Doug in that same bracket as well. He was a pretty prolific goal scorer in his multiple spells at Palace. I think, was it 2 or 3? I think over the course of his career. And he's had a great reputation with the club forever. He's a club legend. And he's a sort of great director of football. A lot of the ones he's integral to a lot of these transfers, of like whining and dining the players and getting them to actually sign for us. Like, we are a great club, we are a family. Like, this is all this kind of thing. So those would probably be my ones, mainly on the fact of I just want one of us to start scoring some goals on a bit more of a regular basis.
Aren't PGMOL trying to get ex-players to become referees? I really feel Andy Johnson fits the bill for that.
Especially after what some certain referees have been doing over the last week, that we don't trust them anymore.
Yeah, well, exactly. Andy Johnson is just like a sort of referee-looking, very staid, quiet, zippy little man. I feel he would be
He
fantastic.
gives you that look and it's like, yeah, all right.
Maybe the next Kalina. Depriving the world of a grey ref. No, I thought along similar lines and just went route one with old Ian Wright. He got better with age as a player. He was 28 when he left Palace, so it stands to reason that he's even better now than when he retired. I think that adds up logically. Carried on scoring to the end of his career. Doesn't lose that nose for goal, and I'd like to see him trial a process of finishing a game, immediately putting on some smart clothes and running up to do punditry on his own performance, defenders misses in a room with Roy Keane. So I think that would be great content, if nothing else.
Just a great guy, just a lovely guy.
Yeah, just a lovely guy.
He's
Lovely,
always a great laugh. So
you
never know what he's
I
going to
was
say.
confused there for a second because I thought we'd gone to Roy Keane. I was like, well, yeah, I love you.
Well, yeah.
Interesting figure.
Nah,
But, yeah,
Ian all the way.
Yeah, Ian Wright would just be. He'd definitely be a boost to morale in the dressing room, I think. And I reckon he'd stick in a few. But yeah, I think that's probably about all we have time for today. So thank you to Dan and Finn for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Always a pleasure.
If you've enjoyed listening, give us a 5-star review, as we always say. Helps out a lot. And yeah, we'll hope to catch you tomorrow.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.